So I've lined them up perfectly so that the one is laying directly on top of the other one. I can't see it. Can't see the one that's below. But you can see it now if I roll this back. And you want to get it as close as you can to being perfectly aligned. If you can do it that way and sew a good 1/4 of an inch seam, then you're going to have the best looking result of when you're finished. If you don't like these little dog ear things that stick out, you can cut them off now, or you can wait and you can cut them off later. I'm going to go ahead and cut them off now. So by cutting that first piece off and cutting about half of it off, my seams are going to be kind of staggered. They're not going to be lined up and right on top of each other, and that's what's going to make this jelly roll body much more interesting to look at, because the seams are not going to line up. Now sometimes when you're making a big jelly roll quilt, you end up with big chunks of color right next to each other, the same colors right next to each other, and it's so random that it might be something that you cannot avoid, and it really does not hurt the way the jelly roll quilt looks. If you have the number of fabrics that are the same together, it's just very, like I say, very random, and you can hardly avoid it. Another thing is, you really can't plan how you're going to have them end up, because it ends up being so random. It starts out with such a long piece of fabric, with a piece of fabric that's 1,600 inches long or longer if you're going to make a wider quilt, and that is very hard for you to do, planning exactly where each piece is going to fall. So don't be distressed if there's globs of color together. It's okay. It's kind of the nature of the way these quilts end up. And, you know, you just kind of need to accept that that's what's going to happen. All right, now, you see this is a loop down here now. And so what I want to do is I want to take my scissors and I want to stick it in there, and I want to cut this so that when I'm finished with this seam, I don't have a loop anymore. And what I have is 2 pieces of the jelly roll strip that are sewed side by side so that they look like this. I can open them up. So here's how it looks. Okay? Now, I told you before that when you make a jelly roll race quilt with 40 strips, you're going to do this same process over and over again. With this, since it's so short, we're not going to do it we're not going to take as many steps. We're going to take these 2 and we're going to find the other end of the 2. And we're going to match them up here at the end, trying not to twist them. If you do twist them, it's not the end of the world. But as we sew these 2 together, then we have a piece that's 4 strips wide. So we're going to do that next. And try to line up our edges and kind of pull these apart so that you make sure that you are matching the top and the bottom. And we've got a loop again, and when we come to the end of this loop, we're going to be doing that cut again. And here we go, we're coming down to the end. And I have my loop, and here's the end of my loop. I'm going to stick my scissors in there again. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to sew to the end. So now I have 4 strips width. And when I do the next step, that's going to be my last step of sewing my strips together. So we have 8 together. So we bring up the one end to the other end that's loose, and we line that edge up. And we're going to sew our 1/4 inch seam down this one. Trying to make sure we're lining up as well as we can. And I like to pull them apart a little bit so that I know that I'm pretty straight. Now I'm coming to the end, and this time I want to be pretty careful that I've got this cut correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut open a little bit right here and sew to the end of it. And know that I'm good there. And then I want to line this up on the ends on this cut end here and kind of finger press down here to make sure that I'm cutting straight, because if I'm not cutting straight, then I have to square it off somehow, and I might lose a little bit of my width of my body of my placemat by doing that. Now, there we go. I'm done. That's all there is to it. It's finished as far as making the body. Now, you were going to make a long one. You were going to make a regular size one. After you had them sewed so that there were 8 together, you'd do the same thing again, and then you'd have 16 together, and then you'd cut, and then you do the same thing so that you had 32 together, and then that would be your completed jelly roll body. Obviously this took a lot shorter than it would take if we were sewing something really long.